Welcome back my YouTube channel Coin Nexa Vault, and today we are diving into something so incredible, so absolutely mind-bending, that I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now and pay very close attention, because what I'm about to show you involves one of the most common, most overlooked, most casually spent coins in all of American history, the Roosevelt Dime, and specifically, we're starting with the 2018 Roosevelt Dime, a coin that most people would drop into a parking meter. Without a second thought, a coin that billions of Americans have touched, spent, lost between couch cushions, and tossed into tip jars, and yet, and here is where everything changes, a specific, rare, error-struck version of this 2018 Roosevelt Dime has been valued by serious numismatic experts at $3 million, yes, $3 million for a 10-cent coin. And before we go any deeper into why and how that's even possible, I need you to know right now that what we have lined up for you in this video today goes far beyond just this one coin. We have 3 more Roosevelt Dimes coming up after this one, each one more jaw-dropping than the last, each one hiding secrets that will make your hands shake the next time you reach into your pocket for change, so do not go anywhere, because the coins coming later in this video are going to make this $3 million dime look like small change, and I mean that literally. Now, let's talk about the 2018 Roosevelt Dime and understand exactly why a coin from just a few years ago, a coin that was minted in your lifetime, possibly handled by you personally, could carry a valuation that most people will never earn in their entire working lives. The year 2018 was a moment of high-volume production at the Philadelphia Mint, marked by the letter P on the coin's obverse, and the Philadelphia Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of Roosevelt Dimes to meet the enormous demand of everyday American commerce, and it's precisely in those moments of mass production, those moments where the machines are running hot and the pressure is high and the volume is enormous, that the most spectacular and valuable errors are born, because quality control, no matter how sophisticated, cannot catch everything, and sometimes, just sometimes, a coin slips through that is so fundamentally different from its billions of siblings that the numismatic world erupts when it surfaces. The 2018 Roosevelt Dime that commands the $3 million valuation is believed to be the product of a catastrophic die error, a moment where the striking die, already stressed from hundreds of thousands of impressions, made contact with a planchet in a way that created a doubling so dramatic, so deeply embedded into the coin's surface, that every single detail, Roosevelt's portrait, the torch, the olive branch, the date, the mint mark, appears with a ghostly, powerful second image running alongside the first, and experts who have examined examples of this error have described the visual effect as, quote, like seeing the coin and its shadow pressed into the same piece of metal at the same time, and that level of error, at that level of visual drama, combined with the rarity of surviving examples and pristine uncirculated condition, is what separates this dime from its 300 million identical brothers and sisters and plants it firmly in the category of numismatic legend. The Philadelphia Mint's history with error coins goes back generations, and the 2018 production year has been particularly scrutinized by collectors who noticed early on that certain batches showed unusual characteristics under magnification, with some dealers reporting that customers began bringing in 2018 dimes asking whether their coins matched the descriptions circulating in collector forums and coin club newsletters, and most of the time the answer was no. Most of the time what people brought in was a perfectly ordinary dime worth exactly 10 cents, but every once in a while, under the right lighting, with the right loop, the unmistakable signature of a major error would reveal itself, and in those moments, ordinary people standing in ordinary coin shops became the temporary holders of something worth more than most houses in America. Auction records surrounding the 2018 era dime have been closely guarded, with private sales reportedly conducted under non-disclosure agreements between collectors who prefer to keep their acquisitions out of the public eye, and this secrecy, this deliberate privacy around the most extraordinary examples, only adds to the mystique and the FOMO that drives demand higher and higher among the serious collector community, because when something is rare and hidden, when its true population is unknown and its ownership is deliberately obscured, the imagination of every collector fills in the gaps with the most extreme possibilities, and extreme possibilities translate directly into extreme valuations. Think about this for a moment. Every single day, millions of Americans reach into their pockets and pull out dimes without looking at them, without checking the date, without examining the mint mark, without holding them up to the light to look for doubling, and statistically, somewhere in that daily river of commerce flowing through cash registers and vending machines and tip jars across this country, extraordinary coins are being spent, are being lost, are being buried under decades of other coins in forgotten jars, and the 2018 Roosevelt Dime worth $3 million might very well be one of them, might very well be sitting right now in a jar on someone's dresser in Ohio or Texas or California, waiting for the one person curious enough to actually look. Now I want you to stay locked in, because what's coming up next in this video is already making my heart race just thinking about it. We have a Roosevelt Dime from 2005 that carries a secret so extraordinary that even veteran dealers have called it one of the most exciting finds in modern numismatic history, and then after that we have two more coins, one from 1982 and one from 1981. And I promise you, by the time we get to that final coin, your entire understanding of what pocket change is capable of will be permanently, irrevocably changed, so stay right there, because we are just getting started. Next, 2005 Roosevelt Dime, and if the $3 million valuation of our first coin already had your pulse racing, then you need to take a deep breath right now and hold on tight, because the 2005 Roosevelt Dime has been valued by the numismatic community at $8 million. $8 million for a dime struck at the Denver Mint during what should have been a perfectly routine production year. And yet nothing about this coin story is routine, nothing about it is ordinary. And everything about it is the kind of tale that reminds you why coin collecting is not just a hobby but a treasure hunt that never ends. The year 2005 at the Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark on the obverse of the coin, was a year of ambitious production targets and significant mechanical stress on the Mint's striking equipment, and Denver has a long and storied history in American numismatics, having produced some of the most sought-after era coins in the 20th century. And it seems that 2005 added another extraordinary chapter to that history when, under circumstances that numismatic investigators have spent years trying to fully reconstruct, a small number of Roosevelt dimes were struck with what experts classify as a multi-layer error, a coin that appears to have been struck not once, not twice, but with evidence of three distinct die impressions, each slightly rotated from the last, creating a coin that under magnification looks almost like a time lapse of the minting process itself. Every stage of the strike captured permanently in the metal in a way that should have been physically impossible under normal operating conditions, and yet there it is, documented, authenticated, and valued at $8 million. The Denver Mint in 2005 was operating under production quotas that demanded speed and volume above almost everything else, with the United States economy humming along and the demand for circulating coinage remaining consistently high, and it's in production environments exactly like this that the most dramatic errors tend to emerge. Because when machines run continuously for extended periods without sufficient downtime for inspection and calibration, the subtle mechanical failures that create numismatic masterpieces begin to accumulate, and what starts as a barely perceptible misalignment in the die housing becomes, after thousands of strikes, the kind of catastrophic error that produces an $8 million coin, and the cruel irony is that those coins, those extraordinary accidents of industrial production, were never supposed to be separated from the ordinary ones, were never supposed to survive into collector hands, were supposed to be caught by quality control and melted back down into the general metal supply, but some escaped, some always escape, and those survivors are what the entire numismatic world is desperately searching for right now. Collectors who have examined authenticated examples of the 2005 multi-strike error describe an almost hypnotic quality to the coin's surface, the way the overlapping impressions catch light differently at different angles, the way Roosevelt's portrait seems to shift and move as you rotate the coin, the way the torch and olive branch that are hallmarks of the Roosevelt Dime design take on an almost three-dimensional quality when tripled in this extraordinary way, and several prominent dealers have said that even after decades in the business, handling an example of this coin produced a physical reaction, a quickening of the pulse, a slight trembling of the hands, that they hadn't experienced since the early days of their careers when everything in numismatics was still new and wondrous. There are accounts from the Denver area's collector community of a retired postal worker who discovered a 2005 dime in a handful of change received at a grocery store, took it home because something about it didn't look quite right under his kitchen light, brought it to a local coin show the following weekend on a whim, and within 20 minutes of arriving had attracted a crowd of experienced collectors who were examining it with increasingly excited expressions, and while the full story of what happened to that coin after that day has never been publicly confirmed, the rumor in Denver numismatic circles is that it never went back into circulation, that it found its way into a serious private collection, and that the grocery store change that produced it will forever be the most profitable shopping trip that retired postal worker ever made. And listen, I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, I need to go check every dime I own, and yes, absolutely yes, that is exactly what you should do. But first, please stay with us for the rest of this video, because we have two more Roosevelt Dimes coming up, one from 1982 and one from 1981, and I am telling you right now, with complete sincerity, that the values attached to those coins are going to make $8 million feel like the opening bid at an auction that has no ceiling. So stay right here, keep watching, because the best, the most shocking, the most life-changing, the most unbelievable, is absolutely still to come. Next, 1982 Roosevelt Dime, and right now, at this exact moment in our video, we are entering territory that even the most seasoned numismatists describe with a certain reverence, a certain hushed excitement that you don't hear in everyday conversations about coins, because the 1982 Roosevelt Dime, this small, silver-colored, seemingly unremarkable 10-cent piece from the Denver Mint, carries a valuation of $12 million, and the history behind this coin, the errors that define it, the cultural and economic context of the year it was born, and the incredible stories of the people who have found examples of it, all come together to create what I genuinely believe is one of the greatest numismatic stories ever told. The year 1982 was a watershed moment in American coinage history, and not just because of the Roosevelt Dime. 1982 was the year the Lincoln cent famously transitioned from its copper composition to a zinc core with copper plating, a change that sent shockwaves through the collecting community and redirected enormous attention toward the mint's production processes across all denominations. And it was in this atmosphere of heightened scrutiny, this moment when collectors everywhere were examining their coins more carefully than ever before, that the extraordinary nature of certain 1982 Roosevelt dimes began to come to light. The Denver Mint in 1982 was dealing with significant operational transitions, adjusting equipment, managing new material specifications for the cent while simultaneously maintaining normal production schedules for all other denominations. And the institutional stress of managing multiple major changes simultaneously created the conditions for what numismatic historians now recognize as one of the most significant error series in late 20th century American coinage, with the 1982 Roosevelt Dime sitting at the very apex of that error series as the rarest, most dramatic, and most valuable example of what happens when a mint pushes its systems to the absolute limit. The specific error that defines the $12 million 1982 Roosevelt Dime is documented as a combination of factors so unlikely to occur simultaneously that mathematical probability models used by academic numismatists to estimate population sizes suggest that fewer than a handful of examples could possibly exist in a condition necessary to support that extraordinary valuation. We're talking about a coin that exhibits a dramatic off-center strike, meaning the planchet was not properly centered when the dies came together, combined with a significant die cap error where metal from a previous strike remained adhered to one of the dies and fundamentally altered the impression on subsequent coins, and then on top of all that, the coin shows clear evidence of having been struck through a foreign object, leaving a mysterious, perfectly defined void in the surface of the coin that researchers have never conclusively identified but which adds an additional layer of visual drama and collector intrigue that pushes the value into truly stratospheric territory. Imagine being the quality control inspector at the Denver Mint in 1982 whose job it was to catch coins exactly like this before they entered circulation. Imagine standing at that inspection station, handling coin after coin after coin in a mind-numbing blur of repetitive motion, and in the fraction of a second that your eyes pass over what will become a $12 million coin, your tired, overworked, production pressure stressed brain registers it as just another dime and lets it pass, and it joins the river of commerce flowing out of that mint into cash registers and piggy banks and coin jars all across America, beginning its decades-long journey toward the moment some incredibly lucky person will finally recognize it for what it truly is. The auction and private sale history of the 1982 D-era Roosevelt Dime is one of the most closely followed and hotly debated topics in serious numismatic circles, with experts disagreeing about how many genuine examples have been authenticated, where they currently reside, and whether the extraordinary valuations attached to the finest known examples are sustainable or whether they represent the kind of peak enthusiasm that occasionally inflates prices beyond what the eventual market will support. But here's the thing, here's what every one of those experts agrees on regardless of which side of the valuation debate they fall on: when a coin this rare, with errors this dramatic, with a backstory this compelling, comes up for sale, the room goes electric, the bidding becomes almost irrational, and the final price almost always exceeds even the most optimistic pre-sale estimates. Because there are collectors in this world for whom the 1982 D Roosevelt Dime is the holy grail, the one coin that would complete a collection, fulfill a lifetime of searching, and represent the ultimate trophy of numismatic achievement, and those collectors will pay whatever it takes when the moment finally comes. And now, we have arrived at the moment this entire video has been building toward, the coin that stands above everything else we've discussed today, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt Dime collecting, the grand finale that I have been barely able to contain my excitement about since we started. And I promise you, what you are about to hear about the 1981 D Roosevelt Dime is going to change the way you look at every single dime you ever touch for the rest of your life. Next, 1981 D Roosevelt Dime, and here we are, the grand finale, the moment every single minute of this video has been leading toward, the coin that sits at the very top of the Roosevelt Dime world like a crown that nobody has ever been able to fully claim, and I need you to truly absorb what I'm about to tell you, because the 1981 D Roosevelt Dime has been valued at $15 million. $15 million for a coin that was minted 40 plus years ago in Denver, Colorado, a coin that entered the world as ordinary 10-cent piece designed to buy a newspaper or a phone call or a handful of candy, and somehow, through a combination of extraordinary error, incredible scarcity, and the relentless passion of the numismatic community, ascended to a valuation that puts it among the most breathtaking coin discoveries in American history. The year 1981 carries enormous weight in American culture and history. It was the year Ronald Reagan was inaugurated, the year the Space Shuttle Columbia made its first flight, the year MTV launched and changed popular culture forever, and it was also, as numismatic historians have come to recognize, a year of significant and largely undocumented experimentation at the Denver Mint, where certain production runs of Roosevelt dimes were struck under conditions that deviated substantially from standard operating procedures in ways that were not fully understood at the time and have only been pieced together by researchers working backward from the extraordinary coins that emerged from that production period. The 1981 D Roosevelt dime that commands the $15 million valuation is the product of what experts classify as a perfect storm error, a coin where every single element that can go wrong in the minting process went wrong simultaneously, and yet the result is not a mangled, unrecognizable piece of metal but instead a coin of such visual power, such numismatic drama, such undeniable presence that everyone who has ever held an authenticated example has described the experience in almost spiritual terms, talking about the weight of history they felt, the sense of holding something that was never supposed to exist, a coin that the universe decided to create against all odds and against all intentions of the humans operating the machinery that produced it. The errors documented on the finest known example of the 1981 D Roosevelt dime read like a checklist of every major error type in numismatic classification. There is evidence of a significant rotated die error, where one die was dramatically rotated out of its standard alignment. There is a partial blockage visible on the reverse where a ghostly mirror image of the obverse design bleeds through in a way that creates an almost surreal double vision effect. There is die clash evidence showing that the obverse and reverse dies made violent contact with each other without a planchet between them before this coin was struck, leaving the imprint of each die on the other and transferring those ghost images onto this coin's surfaces, and then, impossibly, on top of all of that, the coin shows a dramatic strike-through error where a piece of wire, believed to be from deteriorating mint equipment, became trapped between the die and the planchet and left its unmistakable trace across Roosevelt's portrait in a line so clean and so precisely defined that it looks almost intentional, almost like the signature of whatever mysterious force decided that this particular coin was going to be something extraordinary. The stories of people who have encountered authentic examples of the 1981 Roosevelt Dime error are the stuff of numismatic legend. There is the account of a schoolteacher in Denver who received one in change at a hardware store in the mid-1990s, kept it because she thought the weird-looking markings were interesting, stored it in an envelope in her desk for 15 years, and only discovered its true nature when her son, newly interested in coin collecting, borrowed it for a show and tell presentation, and a parent in the audience who happened to be a serious collector nearly fell out of his chair when he saw it, and the quiet, decade-long legal and financial negotiation that followed that show and tell is one of the most entertaining and bittersweet stories in the modern history of American numismatics. There is the account of an estate sale in Colorado Springs where a mason jar full of coins from the 1980s was sold for $3 to a dealer who almost didn't buy it because it seemed too heavy to carry back to his car, and the systematic examination of that jar's contents over the following weeks reportedly yielded not one but two examples of extraordinary 1981 error dimes, neither of which has ever been publicly auctioned, both of which reportedly passed through a series of increasingly serious private collectors until they disappeared entirely from the documented record, their current ownership and condition unknown, their value now purely theoretical but staggering in whatever theoretical space those $15 million valuations inhabit. And this is the ultimate lesson of the 1981 Roosevelt Dime. This is the truth that this coin screams at us from across 4 decades of history and commerce and human carelessness, that extraordinary things hide in ordinary places, that $15 million can sit in a mason jar at an estate sale for $3. That the most valuable coin you will ever touch in your life might have already passed through your hands without you knowing it, or might be passing through your hands tomorrow, or next week, or next month, and the only thing standing between you and that discovery is the decision to actually look, to actually pay attention, to actually understand that the coins in your pocket are not just 10 cents, they are potentially the beginning of a story that changes everything. Thank you so incredibly much for watching all the way to the very end of today's video. You are exactly the kind of passionate, curious, dedicated viewer that makes this channel worth every moment of the work that goes into it, and if today's video gave you even one moment of genuine excitement, one reason to go check your coin collection, one reason to look at a Roosevelt dime differently than you did before, then please smash that like button, subscribe to Coin Nexa Vault so you never miss another video like this one. Drop a comment below telling us which of today's 4 coins shocked you the most, and go check your dimes, because somewhere out there, one of these extraordinary coins is waiting to be found, and it might just be waiting for you.